Hi, friend.
Hey.
We are back for a new episode of Justice, and you're here.
You're here.
Yeah, well, I thought you would have ran away after one of our previous episodes on sex and dating in your 40s.
I wasn't the one who I thought was going to run away.
You thought it was going to be me?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, just you shared a lot.
I did. But I am a perpetual oversharer.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm.
Well, I think that I share a lot of times because it helps me to heal. There's something about that vulnerability that allows me to know that I'm growing.
I also felt shockingly fine about sharing. And I think we're taught to feel so much shame around certain aspects of our lives and like revealing those to people outside of maybe our partner or an intimate few friends. But that's what we're doing here.
Absolutely. And that is what we hope to change with Justice. And so today's episode is chocked full of a bunch of topics, or a topic that I think can oftentimes be hard to discuss and to wrap our heads around, and that is friendship breakups. But before we get there, how you feeling today?
I'm nervous.
About being transparent today? Or?
No, I just, this is our second full day of filming.
Yeah.
And I think for the first there were nerves, but it was all excitement and an unknown kind of thing that was happening, and now I just don't want to screw up.
You're not gonna screw up.
How are you feeling?
I am feeling exhausted, honestly. I just got back from vacation, which is great, but also in just a whirlwind of work. I'm grateful for it, but I'm fucking tired.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about being tired and big age too,
Absolutely.
because it's a thing. Okay, let's get to our sponsor. I am so excited about our sponsor today. You have a lot of experience with our sponsor. I am new to our sponsor. Our sponsor is Understance, which is a bra and underwear company, women owned, based in Vancouver, Canada. They've worked with you in the past, and they have lovingly and generously and with a lot of excitement joined the Just Us podcast. Tell us a little bit why Understance is so great. I mean, I'm new to them and I am wearing a bra today.
Yep. So they are a mission-driven company. They are size inclusive. They really pride themselves on body diversity, racial diversity, and even the models that they choose and who they partner with. Great materials, super comfortable. The lift is amazing with or without underwire. And you actually mentioned you're wearing a bra.
Yeah, so I as we all know, I had a double mastectomy a year ago, and since then have not been able to wear underwire bras. They've been just too uncomfortable, and I'm able to wear an underwire bra for the first time in over a year. So thrilled. And I really like it. It's very, very cute.
Absolutely. And to speak about their mission, they say Understands is a lingerie brand that puts comfort above all else. We focus on solution products designed to relieve, smooth, lift, stay put, all without sacrificing style. We offer bras 28 to 48 A through J cups and continue to expand our size range. We test to wear every single size and treat no size as an afterthought. Our ambition is to provide the very best bras for every shape and size. Thank you to Understand.
Thank you so much to Understands. And we'll link them in
the show notes
with a discount code. And yeah, they're great. I can't say enough great things about them.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's that time of the episode. Who's our quote today for Dumb Shit Men Say?
I had to clear my throat to do a proper introduction for one known as the great Dr. Umar Johnson. And I had to share with you who...
I think a lot of our listeners aren't going to be as familiar with Dr. Umar Johnson as maybe you were. So can you give us a little background?
Absolutely. And so Dr. Umar Johnson is, I would say, the high priest of hotepery, of the hoteps, right? For folks who don't know, we use the term hotep often in the Black community to refer to people who like to romanticize the entire continent of Africa. We like to say, well, in Africa, what our people did, as if it's not a continent made of over 50 countries. And they also are really into incense, and they're really into ankh necklaces.
Among other things.
Among other things. And the other things tend to be sexism, misogyny, and homophobia and transphobia, okay? And so what gets kind of sticky though is that the rhetoric is oftentimes very laced with like Black liberation, Pan Africanism. And so it makes sense as it starts, but as we get deeper, it gets highly problematic. And he is someone who is very popular across the internet. He's done a lot of interviews and television shows, and yeah, you can find him someplace.
What is he a doctor of?
So we're gonna use Dr. Lightly.
Okay.
Okay, not gonna call him his credentials into question because I haven't seen them. I don't know where the man went to university at. But he seems to be a doctor in hating Black women. That's where I would start. And as such, let's get into the dumb shit that he has said. And I'm gonna try to say it in his voice because I think that's really gonna
Okay.
All right. Another problem Black women have, and I know I'm gonna upset some of my sisters when I say this, but I'm gonna keep it real. Stop hoeing around all through your 20s. Stop hoeing around all through your 30s. You give your 20s to the street Negroes. You give your 30s to the pretty boys. They use you up, dog you out. Now you're in your 40s and nobody's jumping to marry your ass. Now you saying there ain't no good Black men. No, there's plenty of good Black men. The problem is you gave your best years to men who didn't deserve it. Margo,
Tashira.
what do you think?
I feel like I'm gonna turn it back to you on this one. I have lots of thoughts.
Okay.
But what's your initial? I mean, let's kind of go back and forth. What's your initial reaction?
That it is comedy. It is pure comedy. And I actually would laugh, but only to keep from crying because the difficult part is that there are many among us in the Black community, especially younger people, young Black cis hetero men who take talking points from the Dr. Umar Johnsons in the world. There has been, Margo, a very big, like, and loud vocal element of our community that has been talking about Black women's submission and need to submit. And all of these men kind of fall within the same.
Does that feel recent?
It feels recent by way of social media, podcasts, video casts.
Because I was gonna say it feels not unlike the far right. And this movement to feel kind of encapsulated by just being like a regular person, or this notion of like being in a regular relationship or being a family friendly voter, or the kind of pushback to a progressive, pendulum.
Exactly. And we go back to the idea that we spoke about in a previous episode that you don't have to be a man to advance sexism. And in this case, you don't have to be white to advance white supremacy and like these cis hetero norms that are highly problematic.
So this isn't specifically related to this quote, but I was talking to a friend of mine who has a much younger sister in college, and she was saying how shocked she was by how submissive her sister's friends are and how they say they like it.
Okay, look. I have said often that if you like it, I love it. The ways in which you define your relationship, girl, do you go off, right? But the problem is that the ways in which we define our relationships in hetero situations, and not sometimes, right? Heteronormativity can exist in any type of relationship dynamic. But the problem is that it has been so infused and tainted by these patriarchal ideals until the question
And
is,
morality.
do you really want that? Or do you believe you have to have it to have a
Right.
man?
Right. And if you do that, you are somehow adhering yourself to a higher level of moral superiority.
Right, exactly.
So you want it, like if you want it, fine. But are you wanting it because you think that's the right thing to do? Or that's the way you're going to get married? Or even you should want to get married, or that you're only dating with the expectation of getting married?
Which is so interesting because that is the position that women are put in, right? Because
But not men.
don't date with the expectation of getting married. So back to this egregious Umar Johnson quote, who are women supposed to marry or to date in their 20s and 30s because men aren't dating to marry. They haven't been told to very often to date to marry in their 20s and 30s. And so if I'm with the street dudes in my 20s and with the pretty boys in my 30s, why isn't the messaging to them to change their behavior? Why is the narrative and the onus on me to change mine?
Right. And that's the same around kind of a lot of these conversations. Like, think about the abortion debate. Why is the abortion debate a women's issue?
Mm, absolutely.
Right. It's again, the onus is on women to somehow control the bodies of men,
Um, which is
which we're told we have no authority over because we're submissive.
right. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. And then God forbid you in your 40s, girl, and nobody's jumping to marry your ass. So then what you gonna do? And what I also find problematic is that these dusty, crusty ass Negroes think that we want to marry them. I just be like, I don't want you. We don't want you. There is a contingent. We talked about the lack of ball washing, right? There is a contingent and growing of Black women, and I hope this podcast allows for them to be seen and heard, who are growing, who are successful by whatever measures they have defined themselves. They are happy, they're joy filled, they're seeking pleasure, and all of those things are happening outside of men. And much like the far right, that scares them.
Right.
And
It
so,
scares the men.
absolutely. And so that's
So what do
when
they do?
we get advice about what the problem is that we have. And whenever someone says the problem with this community is and they're not a part of it, I'm already side eyeing you.
Right. Because how can you speak for someone whose body or life you don't live in?
Absolutely not. So you all stay tuned for
More dumb shit men say. We have lots of content
yeah, but
to choose from.
in the meantime, stop hoeing.
Or
I,
or start.
I love hoeing, and I'm not gonna stop. So there's that.
Okay, good. Okay. What do we have to look forward to? We have so much to look forward to. The responses to the podcast have been amazing. Please continue to follow us on all of our platforms: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Um, we're getting a lot of interesting and helpful feedback about what people want to see. And people want more engagement, more content. And so stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff brewing, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of it in the next month or so.
Absolutely. We would love for you to review the podcast on Apple.
Yes, the more you review, the higher we appear or something.
Margot's not the tech person among the duo. Things increase for us, shall we say. Also,
Traction.
there we go. Drop us a comment over on YouTube as well and subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Okay, what's our episode today?
It's going to hit us all a little differently. We are at a big age, of course, but I feel like just by way of conditioning and socialization, this idea of friendships and what they mean to women and femmes has been something just very specific in our lives since childhood. And I think at this stage, we have all dealt with friendship breakups or friendships that need to end. And they have been tough. They have sometimes been enlightening. We've had to show courage and bravery. And today we want to jump into what that means for us in this season of life. We talk a lot about romantic relationships ending, right? But what about
And we expect romantic relationships to end.
but not friendships for some reason.
Right. So why?
So why?
So I remember I have had a best friend since I was 2. We met in daycare and we were always friends, so we never went to school outside of daycare. And we are still best friends today, other than you. And I always had Nora, and it was so defining for both of us, but always struggled to find friends in school.
Mm.
And I remember always wanting a best friend in school and feeling like there was something wrong with me that I didn't have, like the Babysitters Club.
Yes. Yes. Same for me because I remember just wanting a click.
Yeah, I never had a click until high school a little bit, but no.
Yeah. And I think for me, very early on, part of my issue too is that I don't know if I would describe this relationship as abusive. That probably is too heavy of a term, but it was definitely not reciprocated with someone who I thought was my best
Oh, I
friend.
had one of those.
Did you have one of those? And it's so funny, and it also defined me at a young age
Me too.
because
Oh,
my grandmother said to me recently, I never really felt like you had friends until you got older. Like when you were a child, you always wanted friends so bad, and the people who you thought were your friends, they were not."
yeah, I had that. One of my friends was physically abusive to me.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she strangled me.
What's her address? Oh, okay. She could drop her location. I'll pull up.
But but there's something there.
Yeah.
Like that desire and the feeling of not belonging when you don't have it
Yeah. And I think it's because we are not encouraged to be healthy and whole
on our
alone.
own. Yeah.
And that's how we get into these situations. So what about you in friendship breakups? So you've had Nora, your best friend for many, many years.
I've had Nor for my whole life. We've been so close for the last 12 years. I have really close friends from kind of different seasons of my life. Um, but I've had a lot of friendship loss along the way.
Hmm.
And there have been some patterns to it for me. I think going back, you know, like I desperately always wanted a big group of friends. And so when I became an adult or got to college and started making a lot of friends, I was like over the moon and kind of couldn't quite believe that I had friends.
Wow.
And I think that really pushed me to stay in friendships that didn't always serve me. And maybe I didn't serve them.
Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, but you had maybe had Ella, and she was maybe a few years old, and you were talking about being in the season where you felt like some of your college friends weren't showing up in the same way or they weren't inviting
Oh,
you.
yeah.
And what do you think that's about as far as friendships, like being able to go through different phases of life? Because you were really upset, as you should have been.
I don't know. I feel like maybe you and I have a different perspective on this than other people. Well, I want to hear what you have to say about it. But I've never, I mean, certainly going through something as traumatic and life changing as having a child, um, is it is helpful to have people in your life who have similar experiences. But I, in many ways, and I certainly have good friends who I've met through my children. But I also don't think that one has to have the same life experience to show up as a good friend.
For sure.
And so I was the first of my well, I had two close college friends who had babies in their 20s early for our group. And then the rest of my community from college did not have children until their late 30s. And I was pregnant with Ella when I was 29. So comparatively young
Yeah.
um in my group of friends. And I felt like a pariah.
Mm.
Like I felt like people didn't think I was fun anymore. People didn't want to be around me. People didn't want to be around her. Which felt really painful. And, giving everyone grace, um, I think probably I did want her to be around more. Like she was with me. I was so young. We had no money. Like we had a babysitter for while we were at work, but like I didn't have a night babysitter or weekend baby. So she just came with us.
Yeah.
Um, and I just felt like that wasn't cool.
Mm.
And people I was struggling and people like I just felt like no one cared.
And that's really the difficult part, right? Because postpartum, you're dealing with
It's just so lonely and scary and hard. And then to feel and everything about like your life is your life kind of from A to Z is different. And then to feel like you no longer fit in within your community was very hard for me.
yeah, and I've had other friends with children who have described it in the same way. And to be on the other side of it, I want to be transparent and say that when I was younger, I was not a good friend to my other best friend who had a child young. And looking back, I've always felt a lot of shame and guilt around it because she had her right as we were graduating college. And it was a difficult season for me. And I remember thinking, why is she having a baby right now? And so then the baby comes and she's absolutely amazing. She's brilliant. She's getting ready to graduate high school. And I'm so grateful for her and to be a part of her life. But for me, I think I just froze.
Mhm.
I got really scared because I didn't know how to be present in her life in the same way. And it took years for me to come back around and be like, you are my best friend. I'm gonna figure out how to be a best friend to you and to be an auntie for your baby. But I had to grow up. It was a maturation process for me, for sure.
Was she upset with you?
I think she missed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she was angry. I
I
think
felt
she
that way.
missed me.
I felt that way too, and I think for for me, I put so much emphasis on having these friends and these women who I thought of and still think of as really dynamic and cool, and being in community with them, and then to no longer be, and to be like, "Oh, well, I'm just boring," or "I don't deserve it," or "There's something wrong with me."
So then I think the narrative shift might be for people in your position. It's not that there's something wrong with you, it's that the people on the other side don't have
Well,
it to give.
I also just think this kind of concept that we can show up for people who are going through different things in different
Talk
ways,
about that. Yeah,
no matter what choices we make for ourselves.
for sure.
And I think I think having a child is kind of one example, but I can think of so many other experiences that we all are going to go through. Death of a grandparent, death of a parent, illness, buying a house, selling a house, renting an apartment, right? Getting a new job, moving cities, right? No one is going through these experiences exactly in tandem.
Mhm.
So why can't we just be like, this is exciting or this is hard for you right now. I am here for you in this moment.
Yeah, it's a demonstration of empathy, I think. But that also takes self-awareness at the same time because I've shared with you recently about how I feel like a relationship in particular, but maybe more than one that I know of, became particularly fraught when I decided I wanted to live my life very differently. And
Talk about that
so
because I think I can see that happening for me as well.
yeah, exactly. And so as two reformed attorneys, I
In recovery.
in recovery. Relapse is not part of this recovery, though. Yeah, we are staying clear on that 12-step program. Um,
I mean, maybe.
yeah, no, we are. So, I, started this journey by first leaving my job in public policy and then going into luxury retail. And people thought that I had literally lost my mind. Like, how
Hmm.
could you, as an attorney, decide to go work in a clothing store? And from there, I then became a solopreneur working for myself full time in December of 2020.
Hmm.
And I had a close friend who I'd had since college, 19 years old, who just could not come along on the journey. I think it was difficult for her to wrap her head around the fact that I would have wanted to do something different as far as my career is concerned, especially her as someone who just really privileges education and status in a particular way. And then when I decided to work for myself, or even before then, because I don't know we were still talking, if we were still talking when I decided to work for myself. But as I was getting more opportunities with politics and fashion, and it was clear that I was going to be able to buy myself out of my job, I came to her one day and I was like, yo, I feel like when I'm sharing good news with you, like you're not engaged. And things just completely blew up. I think she felt like I shouldn't have criticized her. She felt like she told me directly, well, what if I don't care about those things in your life? And I said, you don't have to care. You're so right. But you don't get to not care and be my best friend. That's where the line in the sand is drawn. And so I thought we had gotten past things, but we hadn't. And we just had a last conversation and never spoke again. And so I think what I took away from that, Margot, more so than the friendship ending, particularly because it was something that had started when we were so young and
Yeah.
that was painful. But what I took more from it is that I, at 40, cannot be friends with someone with whom I cannot disagree.
Mm. So I have had kind of similar experiences, but maybe came to the party a little late. Um, and I'm thinking of, friends who, some friendships kind of organically just
Yeah.
go away.
Mhm.
And that feels less painful than the ones that kind of end. I mean, at least for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think for a long time, I felt very hurt or like it was happening to me or like I had done something to like make someone not like me or not want to be friends with me anymore. And um in this narrative that I developed over a long time for a lot of different reasons, like that I wasn't cool or I wasn't interesting or I wasn't the fun friend. I was always the safe friend.
Mm.
Um and I was always the friend taking care of people, particularly in a college like environment, right? Um and there were lots of reasons for that. Like I am a caretaker by nature. I care deeply about my friends and my community. I like taking care of people. So it's not like, oh, this just happened. Um but the thing that shifted for me over the last year is that it's now something that I feel ready to make for myself. And so there have been a few friendships that have come to an end over the last year or two for me that I haven't felt bad about myself. I felt sad for the ending, but also just like I hope I would with a romantic relationship, like being graceful about it.
Mhm. I love
Because it doesn't have to be messy
seasons change, people change. And to think, as you mentioned earlier, that we're supposed to have relationships that last
forever.
from the cradle to the grave, it's just not realistic.
Well, I also think that it's okay to have some of those friendships that are not intimate anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like a friendship can be super intimate, super close, and then no longer be. And that doesn't mean the friendship is ended. It just means that it's changed.
Yeah, things I think also take different shape, right? So I may talk to you every day for 6 months, and then I talk to you once a month.
Yeah.
And I think we have to give ourselves grace for that as well. Were there any red flags that you may have seen, like in relationships that have ended over the years?
I mean, yeah.
What was it something that was like a through current for you?
Yeah, I think. I think that there was a period of my life that I felt was very dramatic. Um, and there were friends in my life that were also having really hard times. And that felt safe, right? Like, oh my God, can you believe this happened? Oh my God, like this horrible thing happened, or this, I haven't slept and I'm studying. Like, it was everything was so intense and so hard um and so fraught. Everything was so fraught. And then I couldn't live like that anymore.
It's so ironic that we have this in common because I was about to say the same thing. I went through a series of just bad relationships, one after the next, the next, the next. Made a commitment to be by myself for a while, to
I
be
remember
on
that.
this healing journey. During that season, met my ex, and it was the best relationship I had had to that point. It wasn't toxic, it wasn't abusive. She made me happy. We laughed, and I noticed relationships around me start to change because I wasn't in this season of high
Drama.
drama and toxicity.
And I didn't feel conflicted. I think that's something that I've come to as well about myself. Like, and people have given me that feedback, like, Margo, you're just so decisive. You make decisions so quickly. And I think I do. Like, that is I like really make decisions with my gut. I feel for the most part that those decisions are right for me.
Yeah.
And I don't question them because I don't want to live my life always questioning, like, was this the right thing? Was that the right thing? Right? Like, I make an informed decision, and then it could be the wrong decision, but I don't want to like perseverate over that decision. I think that was new for a lot of my friends.
Mm.
Like, I wasn't asking their permission to be happy or to, I don't know, you could X, Y, or Z it. To have certain friends, to do certain things, to date people, to live a certain place.
But that has to do with being a big age too, which is another part of the beauty of aging, I think, because other people's opinions, hopefully, and I know this is true for me at least, they just don't matter as much anymore
No.
as they used to.
No, and there's also this other part about aging that I have found actually so exhilarating and exciting, which is, and this sounds so trite, but it's the relationship with myself. Um, and especially in this season for me now, for lots of reasons, dealing with family stuff and, other health issues, mainly in my family, I've actually found the times where I feel the best are the times where I'm alone.
Amen.
And that used to be a very scary thing for me, to kind of just sit with myself and be alone. And now it's time that I really look forward to and actually seek.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's also, I think, a change. There's something I don't exactly know what I'm trying to say, but there's something there about friendship too. Because there's this like attachment we have to certain friends, like we need them.
Yeah.
But if we don't need them,
Ooh. That part. Well, what I hear you saying and the way it resonates with me is that the higher we value ourselves, the better we expect to be treated by other people.
yeah, and I also want my time with my friends, and not that it's like all roses and fun times,
Yeah.
and like, ooh, like pop the champagne. I mean, sure, but um that we go through hard seasons and share loss and grief and fear with our friends, but that friendship shouldn't be hard.
Yeah, yeah. You were the first person that told me that because I'd never received a message around relationships not needing to be hard.
Right. Well, that's also just messaging, right? Like I had to learn that myself too. Like we're told that everything is hard. Anything worthwhile is hard.
And that's just
Just
not
not
true.
true.
And also, whatever is not serving us can fucking kick rocks, and I don't care what it is. That's what I have learned.
Do you see any through line with your friendships that you've either severed or lost? Like have friends ever, like looking back, have any friends ever put you in a situation that like now you're like, ugh.
Um, uh, Close friends, we probably were up to the shenanigans together for sure. But I definitely have had people in my life that encouraged me to make very questionable decisions for sure. Like that, I think by the time I dated a dope boy.
Mhm.
Oh, so
Well, yeah, kind of.
yeah, kind of.
And your auntie told your grandma?
Girl, was she a whole ass snitch? And my grandma sits me down and was like, he sells drugs. You can't date him. And I was like, that's the weed plug, grandma. I need to date him. But yeah, girl, I remember like being encouraged to date him by a close friend, and she's like, "Girl, just date him and da da
Have
da,
fun.
have fun." I'm like, "But I think he has a girlfriend." She's like, "It don't matter, da da da. Get your money from him." Um, and so I mean, to get the money part was actually great advice, but dating him and looking past the girlfriend was definitely not good advice, and I am regretful of that. Um on top of the fact that this man had nothing,
To offer you.
we had nothing in common. I remember telling him, I was like, hey, he was like, oh, let's go out. And I said, sure, where you want to go? He was like, I don't know. I said, well, you just go to Starbucks and get a coffee? He said, what's Starbucks? We had nothing in
I mean,
common. I
you
mean,
are very, very snobby.
I mean,
Joking.
oh, milk latte. Just listen. 2 pumps of caramel and 1 pump
A
of mocha.
frappuccino.
You know,
No.
that's what I be on. No, but there was some class stuff that was happening there because I mean he sold drugs. That's what he did. You know, he was in the trap all day. So I'm like, pulling up in the trap, smoking a blunt. Like, what was my
Well,
life?
I mean, I think having those experiences are important, but it's interesting when you feel kind of encouraged or kind of pushed into an unhealthy environment.
Absolutely.
I can think of some experiences less with dating, although some with dating, and more with like dysmorphic eating.
What?
Oh yeah, like let's go on a diet together. Let's not eat blah blah blah. Let's, there's something there too that like people also kind of want their issues to be your issues.
For sure. Well, but
And I felt I in retrospect looking back, I was like an easy target for that.
well, I must be too because you want to tell these people how you had me on a 5-day starvation diet. You want to tell them that?
It's anti-cancer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all I know is I was hungry and angry, Margo.
Yeah.
But I did feel better afterwards, so thank you. I won't say the name
No.
because we're not doctors, but Margo did have me on a fat.
There are some benefits for people who are high risk for cancer for doing some intermittent fasting. That's all I'll say.
That's all you'll say.
But it was hard.
I feel like my metabolism still has not gotten straight. Sweat Hut with you, fasting.
I mean, I do like extreme things, but I also I'm not gonna. I'm sorry.
It's totally fine. I just thought I would hand you the mirror.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no, but in looking back, I do feel like there were environments. I can also think about it around drinking.
Like drinking too much or being encouraged to drink a lot.
Yes.
Oh, I can see that, especially when we were younger.
Yes, for sure. And the kind of connection between drinking and being fun. And that it took me, a long time to kind of decouple my relationship with drinking. And how do I want to drink and what environments do I want to drink, how to drink safely. And I think that's something we all learn. But I definitely feel, and I'm sure a lot of people have experiences where kind of some of those more risky behaviors happened kind
Yeah.
of in friendship.
In friendship, yeah. And so then it gets back to what my grandma said.
Right, but then it's like, is it experimentation that you're doing with someone you trust, or is it bad behavior that's being pushed on you by someone else? I mean, I think those are very fine lines.
Yeah, I mean, you have to answer yourself.
You have to answer yourself,
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
every situation is a little different. But it gets back to what my grandma said about me, which was that like you never really had friends. Like you didn't have friends until you
I
were
think
an
my
adult.
mom would say that too about me.
So to wrap things up, I mean, what would we say now at this age we've learned?
So I feel over the last, period of life, like 5 years, I have met so many incredible people, but not because I was looking.
Mm,
And I don't go into experiences anymore with an expectation. I think I've pushed myself to do things that I've formerly would have never done, like go on vacation by myself or go to classes by myself or, dinners where I don't know anyone or like school events by myself for my kids. And I don't have any expectation of having a partner in crime. And that has been really liberating for me. And I think as a result, I've met a lot of really amazing people.
So being by yourself has brought you in community.
Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope.
What do you think?
I've realized that I am the happiest when I'm on my balcony, chain smoking Newports and drinking a glass of Chardonnay
With some THC.
with a little sprinkle of a tincture up in there.
But is that true?
The THC tincture?
No, not the tincture that when you're by yourself on your balcony.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that being content with myself has deepened my relationships with others in a real
I
way.
feel that too.
Yeah.
I also think for you, it's such a testament to your strength because that's not the message that you received or receive from people in your family.
What do you mean?
Like, I know your grandma's really nervous about you living alone
Oh, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
doesn't like the idea.
Of
Coming
me
from a
living so
place of
far
love.
away. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you having to not only kind of make that decision, but also own it
Own it and own the fact
and not fake it.
that I don't always want to be around people, right? In the same way that I did in my 20s and my 30s. I
Same.
remember a time when it was like, where are we going to brunch? What
Yeah,
we
same,
doing? Let's
same.
go shopping. Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. And it's
Always.
like,
Like any
girl,
weekend that didn't have plans or weeknight, like dinner, like happy hour, museum every night.
yeah, no. And those things are great when they happen, and I almost think I
Me
appreciate them
too.
more.
I feel more
now.
present when I make a
Absolutely.
decision to do things versus feeling obligated.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to literally stumble around DC drunk or like buzzed all weekend long, just going from thing to thing to thing, day to night party, happy hour thing, and then pulling up at a friend's house and, drinking some more, talking some more shit, inviting people over. It was just always a need to be with people, whether we were doing something meaningful and edifying or not. And some days I miss that. I miss just being able to like pull up at your house and be like, hey girl, what you doing today? But for the most part, I've learned how to enjoy my company, which I think has made me be a better selector of the people who I have in my orbit. So I think that's what I've learned.
Yeah. I feel I as Ella would say. Do you know this?
No, what is
When you
that?
when you agree with something.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I feel that. Can I tell you something I miss about our 20s and 30s?
What?
And that's kind of the effortless nature of doing some of those things.
Oh, for sure.
One of the things I really don't like about big age is how many plans you have to make. Like, you can't just show up, be like, I'll see you here. It's like, when's the reservation? Like, what? Like, everything is much more planned,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
for sure.
for a reason. But I miss kind of stumbling down the hall in my dorm,
Yeah.
to like go grab a friend for brunch.
So there was an ease
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes we start to lose.
Well, but I wonder, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wonder if that's changed with more technology. Like, I wonder if college students or younger people don't have that ease anymore because like we were just getting cell phones when we were in college.
This is true. And I think very often it's easy to think that you know what's happening in somebody's life because you've seen them on social media. And so you're like, oh, girl, I know you had the baby and you got a new job and all these things. And when it's like, that's their highlight reel on the internet, that may not be what has happened in their real lives. And so I miss the ease. I think social media requires us to go beyond the apps and make deeper connections. And I appreciate the alone time, I would say, are the three biggest takeaways for me.
I would say that I've given myself permission to let some friendships go, and it's not about my deficiencies. That I appreciate my time alone or time with a selected few, and kind of an openness to meeting the universe. That there's just so much out there and so many people to meet, and they don't all have to be best friends, but they can be friends for a moment. They can be friends for a season. They could be friends for a specific class or kind of hobby.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, wrapping things up, what is something you're going to do for yourself today?
Well, I'm gonna dance.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
I'm also going to dance. Now, here's the thing. I know that you know this about me. There's only really one dance that I can do well,
Yeah, you're a good twerker,
period.
but I don't know if you know, but I'm a classically trained ballerina.
So I think we're going to be the twerking ballet
I mean, I haven't
coming
really,
to you soon.
I haven't really danced in a long time, but it's something that I do want to get back to. So I'm excited for our TikTok.
For our TikTok today,
Yeah.
we are going to film a couple TikToks, some social media. I'm excited for that. That is what we will be doing for ourselves today. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode.
I really want to hear what people think. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of, and I'm actually shocked that I didn't cry
Me too, actually.
Yeah, during this episode. So the not crying isn't at all because we don't care or we haven't felt this kind of in our core. Um, it's something that I think kind of is sitting with us, just like it's probably sitting with a lot of people listening in different ways.
Yeah, and I think it is reminiscent of where we are in our healing journey.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
Thank
friend.
you all. Love you, friend.
Love you too.